Hi everyone, my name is Desiree and I will be going over the interventions for the individual. So for our client Rebekah, who has some eating disorder issues and some mental health and substance abuse issues as well, I will be going over our methods of treatment as well as some research-based articles that I found that could also be helpful for her situation. So during our initial intake, Rebekah presented as nervous, slightly standoffish, but she did seem communicative and was willing to participate in treatment. And she wants to do everything she possibly can so that she has a healthy, happy life and regains that positive control over her life as well. So I know she has some issues with her childhood, leaving her mother's care, going to her grandmother's care, and then being put down, that kind of thing. And I believe that kind of feeds into her issues that she's having now. So she is willing to put in the effort and, understand that there is some issues and some previous trauma that she needs to work on and regain that control over her life in a good way. So her bulimia and anorexia have gotten worse, especially throughout college when she was constantly around other girls and comparing herself to other females. She reported now that she is barely eating. She doesn't know how not to purge. So it's a big issue for her. And then when she does get hungry or, thinks that she needs to eat is when she starts smoking the marijuana, and that makes her hungry again. So I was talking to her a little bit about how she sees herself and she doesn't like how she looks, and she reported that she only weighs about 98 pounds, but she still sees herself as fat. She also reported to me that she has been self-harming by cutting, but it's in places that people can't see, so like on her upper thighs and stuff like that. She denied wanting to commit suicide or harm herself any further. I think it's more of a control mechanism for her at this point. So my recommendation would be that she go to an inpatient facility and start counseling and therapy services. I would maintain constant communication with her. I want sessions at least 3 times a week while she's there. And I also want her to meet with a dietitian who specializes in eating disorders so that she can learn how to eat healthy, count calories or carbs or whatever they do in a healthy way instead of a way that's harmful to her body. So once she gets stabilized and is not self-harming, she can be transitioned to a step-down program for intensive outpatient. The theoretical framework that I used is the acceptance and commitment therapy, which is also called ACT. This is a mindfulness-based behavioral therapy that challenges the rules of a lot of Western psychology. So it's a newer theory in the social work world, and there's not a lot of data on it. But the goal of ACT is to create a meaningful life while being able to accept that hardships that come with it. So they want you basically to take mindful and effective action guided by that person's values, and they have to be present, engaged, aware of everything. So it's a lot of thinking, but instead of avoiding, it's acceptance. So the techniques and tools that are used for acceptance and commitment therapy is the mindfulness skills, which are taught as 4 subcategories, and they include acceptance, cognitive diffusion, contact with the present moment, and the observing self. So clients learn to reduce the impact and influence of unwanted thoughts and feelings through the effective use of mindfulness. It's really about being present, and it was also described as a form of meditation almost, because you really have to be grounded and aware of yourself. And like I said, you learn to accept those unwanted or intrusive thoughts and feelings, not avoid them, and that gives you a more positive control over your life and your mind. So for our treatment plan, some of the goals that Rebekah has are to stop using substances, so that she can then focus on what her body image naturally looks like. So like I said, she would smoke marijuana to eat, and then kind of purge after that, and it's a cycle. So she wants to know what she naturally looks like, which I think is great. From there, she would like to learn what and how to eat appropriately and not purge afterwards, which is where our dietitian comes in to help out with that. So she is 5'2" and she would like to weigh 115 pounds instead of 98. I think that it's about 17 pounds. I think that's a very realistic goal, especially while she's inpatient. I mean, it's going to take time, but I think that's a great goal for her to have. So our sessions, while she's inpatient, I would like to see her 3 times per week for an hour at a time. And we would use the acceptance and commitment therapy as her main method of treatment. Also, while she's inpatient, on the days that we don't meet, I want her to participate in group sessions so that she builds a support system and sees that she's not alone, and just really has some other people to talk to that's not just a counselor or a therapist or somebody like that. That way she might feel like there's a more even playing field. When she does transition to the intensive outpatient, I want to continue to see her 2 to 3 times per week to monitor her progress and just check in, make sure she knows that she wasn't like left behind or something. And that way we maintain that relationship, and hopefully she progresses in her treatment. So ACT has some strengths and some weaknesses, but it's been called an anomaly. And to me, that could be a strength and a limitation, because on one hand, psychologists agree that traditional behavioral therapy and CBT might not have been adequate, and that there are better methods of dealing with thoughts and feelings. But on the other hand, the core conception of cognitive behavioral therapy is still not well supported. So like I had mentioned earlier, for the theory of ACT, there's just not a lot of literature because it is so new. I believe it was brought up in the 80s by Stephen Hayes. And so there's just not a lot of research comparing this method to other methods like CBT. So I think that can be both a good and a bad thing, because Rebekah, she may struggle just like any new client may struggle. She's never been in treatment before. So we can kind of learn and go through everything together, which could be good. And the only issue that I would have is with the lack of research. I'd be kind of, again, learning along with her. So I think it really just depends on the situation and what we are trying to accomplish. But as long as she remains receptive like she was during our assessment, she will be able to learn the 6 core principles, and I believe she will benefit from this therapy. So at the end of each week, I will assess Rebekah's development by asking her questions or giving her a survey to fill out regarding how she feels, how she is doing, how she feels about herself, and issues or concerns she may have that she may have had that week in treatment. So this is a lot of self-reporting information, data collecting, and one of the methods or the surveys that is used for ACT is called the Acceptance and Action Questionnaire. And there's different variations of it, but there are about 16 questions. So it won't be hard for her to do that at the end of each week. I can collect the data and compare week to week how she's doing. And it will allow me to determine if she's progressed, regressed, or remained the same. So the medical staff in the facility, I would also want them to weigh her at the end of each week to see if she has gained, maintained, or lost weight. And not only to track progress or regression, but it will also help us to determine if she's purging her food while in the facility and if we need to make changes to her treatment plan, because our main goal is her safety and to make sure that she is not purging while in the facility. I believe that her eating disorder likely stems from childhood experiences and relationship with food, as I mentioned earlier. So she was taken away from mom, got placed with grandma, and grandma kind of used food as a reward and punishment system and made comments about her weight. So that's where I think that's stemming from. Her substance abuse could be a combination of that childhood experience because of her mother and also her genetics. That would require some additional testing, but I do think that's a biological, not just an environmental issue. So she is willing to admit that she needs help and begin the inpatient program. So I believe her health, both physical and mental, will improve over time. I am hopeful. I mean, she's really young. This is her first time in treatment, so I am hopeful that she, makes a recovery. So empirical-based practice or evidence-based practice, there was two different articles that I found. So the first one by Stephen Hayes and some of his colleagues was about acceptance and commitment therapy. So it just kind of goes over the concept of this therapy and the studies that they conducted the studies that were conducted by these people. So the studies found that ACT was supportive of the outcomes and changes that clients had compared to other theories and concepts, but they did recognize, of course, that there's not a lot of data to delve further into the comparisons. So this was from 2006, and there's still not a lot of data from what I could see. So I would like to see a little bit more research done just to see how acceptance and commitment therapy compares today, like in today's world, with other forms of therapy. And the other article that I found about interpersonal psychotherapy is also an evidence-based practice, empirically validated treatment for mood disorders, which could be helpful because Rebekah is diagnosed with anxiety, depression, PTSD. So as we were learning in class, we should probably try to treat all of her issues and concerns together instead of tackling them one at a time. That way it's all kind of working together and not like it's not a step-by-step. It's like a process for everything to work together, and that way all of her supports can speak and everybody's on the same page. So I did like this form of therapy as well. And it encourages the client to regain control of mood and functioning. So I thought that just kind of went along with the ACT therapy. IPT is time limited, which I thought was great for inpatient programs as well. It normally runs 12 to 16 weeks. And the goal, or one of the goals of this treatment, is to be the client's ally. So for people like Rebekah that don't have a huge support system or have family issues, I think this is another great therapy for them to participate in. And here are my references. I hope you guys enjoyed, and please enjoy the rest of our presentation as well. Thanks.